All right. Everybody have some coffee, some water, some tea. Feel free to get up and use the restroom or get more things to drink during my talk today. I'm just so excited you're all here. Thank you for giving 2 hours of your beautiful Saturday to talk about a difficult topic. And we want to thank the Mountain Church. Isn't their church beautiful? I just love it. It's so homey. I think it used to be an old farmhouse. Is that right? Yeah, I love the homey feel. And so thank you for allowing us to be here today, Mountain Church. I think I've introduced myself to most of you, but for those that are watching online, I'm Sarah Tuttle. I'm the Executive Director of Lighthouse Northwest, and we are passionate and committed to breaking the cycle of abuse one relationship at a time. And I really do. I thank you for choosing to be here, to have this courageous conversation. I know there's a million other things you could do, but what you're telling me by showing up is that you're passionate about helping people in crisis. Does that sum up kind of where you're all at? Yes, you're passionate about helping people in crisis. And we're passionate about coming alongside of you to equip you and to prepare you and walk beside you as you help others. So our goal today is to share what we've learned over the past decade. I can't even believe in February it'll be 10 years that we've been doing the work of Lighthouse. So we want to share that. Yeah, that deserves, who's ever clapping? I agree. This is heavy work, but we are here to say that lives are being changed and the cycle is being broken, and we have hope and healing that we can offer to anyone in the community. So our goal is to share the realities of domestic abuse. What is it? I know we all kind of have an idea, but what is it exactly? How do you recognize abuse? How do you know it's even going on? What is God's perspective on this? And how do we respond safely and effectively? So that's our goal today. And we're going to do that through story, through sharing facts and statistics, and just sharing what we've learned in the field. We want to pass on the knowledge that we have and give it to you. So will you open in prayer with me? God, I thank you so much for this time. I thank you for these 2 hours. I pray that you would speak your truth to us, help us to learn, help us to grow, equip us to help those in desperate need throughout this community and the surrounding. We just commit this time to you, and we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. Well, Lighthouse was born out of my own family's battle to break the cycle of abuse, to heal, and to build a new, thriving life. And this always gets me so excited just to share my family. We are living a life today that we never dreamt possible. We cannot believe the goodness of the Lord and what our life looks like today. And we are overwhelmed by the graciousness he has to use our story to help shed light on abuse and help set other captives free. It's remarkable what God can do with our lives. We launched our survivor services for women and children in 2013, so it's almost been a decade, by providing housing and support to women and kids. And we began our work in a community living home called Sasha's House. And that's located right here in Des Moines. And Sasha's House is a safe community and environment where 3 families, women and kids, have their own space, but they also share the home together. And they can be with us and participate in our program for up to 2 years. And families are given the time, the support, the resources, the love necessary to heal and build new lives. We offer trauma-informed care through our one-on-one mentoring. One of our mentors is here today. Through our life skill coaching and parenting coaching, through advocacy and case management, assistance with education and employment, support groups, book studies, workshops. Can you tell that takes a lot to help a family heal and build a new life? We have children's programs and activities, and then we know we can't do it alone, so we have professional partners in the community that come alongside our women, counselors, we have legal assistance, medical and chiropractic care, and then some great things like karate and gym classes. We also partner with the local church, the Mountain Church being one of them, and we couldn't do what we do without the support of the local churches. They do yard care for us, they paint for us, they do house maintenance for us, they bring meals to our families, and more importantly even than that is they just build relationship and friendship with the people we serve. And all that is super important, but what is most important and what we have found after all that's being done is we walk beside families and we simply do life together daily. So we navigate the ups and downs of life in real time together, right? We process the pain of the past together. We practice healthy parenting, communication, conflict resolution, and coping skills. We help one another, the staff and the clients, develop new ways of thinking and living and healing, all in a safe and grace-filled environment. Because we know that healing happens in the context of relationship. Our relationship with God and our relationship with one another. And that new life is formed in the daily application. That's the way it happens, right? So I want to share some quotes from our program participants and graduates just to give you some idea of what it's like at Sasha's house. This is from a precious, precious woman. For the first time in 13 years, I feel safe, comfortable, and I'm fed. Basic needs, right? It's amazing. I don't have to worry about where me or my baby will live or what we will eat. That was consuming her life before she came to us. Where will we sleep and what will we eat? I know I will not be hungry at the end of the month. Life is coming together. I actually unpacked my car and moved into my own room. That's a big step for someone that's been living in their car to finally say, this is actually home. The decreased stress has allowed me to start building a life. I've accomplished goals in just a few short weeks that I've tried to do on my own for over a decade. She knew what she wanted to do. She just didn't have the support and the stability to make it happen. What do I hope to get out of my time with Lighthouse? This is my favorite line. A life, not just surviving, but actually living. This is from one of our program graduates, and she is living her best life to this day. It's beautiful. Here's from another program participant. The house is incredibly beautiful, and all our needs are met. This program is giving me the structure and nurturing I never had growing up, but always longed for. This isn't just a shelter and some resources. It's an amazing, holistic approach to doing life together. It is everything I need to build a life that I didn't know how to do on my own. The people running Lighthouse are so kind and honest. They genuinely have our best interest at heart. Every day is a good surprise. I find myself asking, is this real? And then I realize it is. I'll never forget, I was with this woman, this was years ago, and we were just talking in the garage of all places at Sasha's house. And she was laughing and smiling. She has this beautiful smile. And I came in, I was like, what happened? What's going on? Something good must have happened. And she said, I don't know what this feeling is, but I think it might be joy. Isn't that amazing? She didn't know what that was, but she was beginning to identify it. It's joy. When families graduate from our program at Sasha's house, they have successfully broken the cycle of abuse. And they're equipped not only to survive, but to thrive and to actually enjoy their life and relationships. The graduates have an army, a community around them, behind them, and before them. They don't walk out of our home alone. We're with them, and they've built relationship with you guys in the community, and they have their people. And even more than that, they've come to experience and know for themselves the love of God that will never leave them and never forsake them. Here's a final quote from one of our recent graduates. While working my program, I began to get my power back. A sense of relief and a confidence in myself that I can say I had never known before. I could go on for hours about all I've been able to achieve and accomplish while and since being in this program. I am independent. I'm so close to my degree. I'm debt-free. And I have gotten all the outstanding issues I ran from for years dealt with. That's one of the things that we do and want to do for the families is let's help you work through the stuff that might be holding you back in life. Let's work through it together. I'm secure in myself, But most importantly, I am the most healed version of myself that I never even knew was possible, which leads me to be my best self and a great role model for my daughter. I have things that can never be taken away from me again. I know who I am, and I love myself. I have an unbreakable bond and relationship with God. Without a doubt, being part of this program changed the direction of my life. Now that I look back to where I was and where I am today, I'm just so grateful for the incredible women, my care team, who supported me in my journey. She didn't do it alone. None of us are called to do it alone. They made me feel like family, and they are still my family to this day. This is what's possible when families are offered hope, given a place to heal. They're empowered to create lives and homes overflowing with love. We believe strongly that that's God's heart for every person in every community. It's why Jesus came, right? John 10:10 says that Jesus came to give us life, life we can enjoy, and life in abundance that overflows to those around us. We've witnessed God do the miraculous at Sasha's house, more times than I can even count. We've seen healing, restoration, rebuilding lives that were shattered by abuse, by poverty, by homelessness, by addiction. Breaking the cycle is possible. That's what we want to get across more than anything else today. It's possible. Healing is possible. New life is possible for anyone given a chance. It's been our heart's cry as we've been developing this program and working with God and the women at Sasha's house that we could somehow reach more women and children in the community. And I'm excited to share that last month we launched our domestic abuse recovery program called RISE. And we are, of course, continuing our work at Sasha's house. We're not quitting there. That work is wonderful, and we're going to keep on doing it. In fact, we just moved a new family and her little kiddo in recently. But we're also expanding in order to offer all those services I listed to any woman and child in the community who's experienced domestic abuse. That could have happened yesterday. That could have happened a year ago. It could have been 20 years ago. Our heart is to just come alongside wherever they're at in their healing journey and walk with them. So Tuesday evenings right here in this building at the Mountain Church will be a place for women and kids to come to experience God's love. Those that have experienced abuse get to experience his power to heal and restore in a safe and supportive community. And what's so fun is we can offer this to our graduates too, because we're still in relationship with them, and it allows them to come and continue their journey with us. It doesn't just end when they move out of Sasha's house. Through a weekly shared dinner, meeting, and children's program, we can offer all of this, and we are so excited. So don't leave before the end, because I'm going to give you opportunities of what you can do to help us on Tuesdays to help the families. All right, so that's what Lighthouse is and what we do. Are you ready to dive in to learning how to recognize and respond to domestic abuse so that you can be a part of healing and offering hope to families in crisis? So I know this is a deep topic, but we're going to get through it together. So I've got 2 sets of glasses up here. Anybody else in that age range where this is happening to you? I can't decide which is worse, to keep them off or on, so they're there just in case. If I need it or I need it. Right now you're all a little blurry, but I can actually read this. So we're going to go with that. All right. So you have a handout, and I encourage you to take notes, write down questions. I'm hoping maybe we'll have time for a Q&A afterwards, but if not, I'll meet with you, and we'll work through your questions, and I will give you the best answers that I can. All right, so let's begin. Who do you call? Who do you call when the roof is leaking? This is participation now. Who do you call? A roofer, right. Who do you call when your plumbing goes out? A plumber. These are all things we know to do. Sometimes we try to do it ourselves, but it doesn't always work. Okay, who do you call when the electrical issues happen in your home? Electrician, right. What about physical health issues? A doctor, right. When issues arise, we reach out to trained professionals in the field, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's their specialty. Domestic abuse is such a complex issue that requires specialized and trained attention. It's very complex, and I'm going to unpack that for you today. It's not simple. And yet, who do you think families experiencing abuse reach out to in crisis? Who do you think they reach out to? Oh, good job. That's my daughter over there. That's awesome. That's so fun for me. Friends and families. And you know what statistics and studies show? The church. That's where people are going. That's not surprising, but it's true. They're reaching out to people already in their lives. So that's 99% of victims of domestic violence, perpetrators of abuse, and family members seek out family, friends, in the church. That means 1% are calling Lighthouse. 1% are calling other professional organizations. That's minuscule. Whether you know it or not, you stand on the front lines even more than I do to break the cycle of abuse and offer hope to the hurting. Hold on. To break the cycle of abuse, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us learning how to recognize it, how to respond to it, how to connect survivors and perpetrators to professionals, because you're not called to do this on your own. Even though they're going to reach out to you, we want to be right there, ready to support and help. Both men and women experience abuse. However, our expertise is working with survivors that are women. So that's what our focus is going to be today. I know there's a whole nother topic, and I hope one day we have experience in that. But for today, it's survivors that are women. All right, so according to Washington state law, domestic abuse involves physical or sexual harm or assault, stalking, or the threat of harm and psychological aggression. So break that down. That's a lot of words, right? It's a learned pattern of behavior, thought or word or action used to maintain and gain power and control over another intimate partner or family member. It's a word or action, a pattern of behavior used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner or family member. That's what it is. And so statistics and our experience tell us that these are true. 1 in 3 women experience domestic abuse. 1 in 4 severe physical assault. Wrap your head around that. 1 in 4 and 1 in 3. And this is regardless of socio-economic status, regardless of race, education level, or religion. Domestic abuse is no respecter of income level, of skin color, of social standing, or beliefs. 1 in 3 women experience domestic abuse in your workplace, in your neighborhood, in your gym, in your church, in this room, right? That's 1 in 3. Domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than muggings, rapes, and car accidents combined. That's a crisis, right? Every 9 seconds, a woman is assaulted by an intimate partner in the United States. Domestic abuse is the 3rd leading cause of homelessness, and every day, 3 women are murdered by an intimate partner. These statistics are too much. My brain starts just turning off. Is that happening to you? It's just we can't quite acknowledge that this could be real. It's overwhelming. So how is it possible that all this is happening, this abuse and violence, but it's so unseen? Abuse thrives and depends on lies and deception rather than truth and transparency, right? That's where it's thriving. Families can look super healthy and normal to outsiders or in public because abuse thrives hidden behind closed doors. Aren't we all capable of pulling ourselves together? When we go out in public, we can do it. We can present a good image to the world outside of our homes, at work, at church, the community, social media. I don't know what you're all going through, but y'all look beautiful to me, right? I don't know if you had a horrible day today. I don't know what happened in your home. You look beautiful and cleaned up and great. But I don't know what's happening behind closed doors. It's our human nature to put on a good image, isn't it? It's just kind of how we're wired. We want to look okay. And here's the other thing. Abusers don't abuse every moment of every day. In fact, a lot are really quite charming. Successful in the community. I've heard more times than I can count these quotes. I can't believe he would ever mistreat his wife or kids. He seems like such a nice guy. I never saw anything to suggest abuse. I get that. That's real. And an abuser may stop at the limit and never actually physically hit or know that acceptable line not to cross, right? And if it's not physical abuse, which we're going to learn today, there's lots of types of abuse. If it's not physical abuse, people often discount it or mislabel it as a communication problem, salvation issue, relationship problem, go figure it out. Me too. That was my story, right? Domestic abuse is a learned pattern of behavior. I want you to remember this forever. It's a learned pattern of behavior, action or word used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner or family member. Abuse is an issue of the heart. It's the development of negative, destructive habits of behavior to meet self-focused needs and wants. You know what that sounds like to me? It's a sin issue. That's what it is. Let's just kind of bring it down to real terms. It's just a sin issue. Domestic abuse is not caused by anger, mental health issues, alcohol, or drugs. Those absolutely influence, but it's not caused. That's not the root source. It's caused by one person's belief that they have the right to control another person at any cost. It's not about two people in a bad relationship taunting each other. You know, you can get in an argument and bring out the worst in each other, and someone ends up getting hit in the process. That's not it. Domestic abuse is not simply violence that erupts out of nowhere. It's not a sudden loss of control. It's a systemic pattern of behavior used to control a loved one. Violence may be there, or it may come across as very calm and calculating. However subtle, abuse grows over time. This we know and we have witnessed time and time again. The beginning patterns of abuse that might be more tolerable, they will not just stay there. Over time, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 10 years, it will escalate and grow and increase without professional intervention. It turns into isolation, verbal abuse, intimidation, coercion, threats, projecting his faults onto her, refusing to take responsibility that often ends in physical violence in some way. Trust, respect, support, equality, fairness, safety, those are not present. Abuse truly shackles families in wickedness, oppression, captivity, and affliction. All forms of abuse, not just physical, steal, kill, destroy relationships, and they erode a person's feeling of value and worth. All forms are against God's plan, his good plan for our lives, and his design for relationships. There's a difference between abuse and occasional outbursts of anger. Everyone has a bad day. Have you ever just not been your best self and kind of been angry and let some words fly that weren't great, or done a few things that, man, why did I do that? That's not what we're talking about. There's no perfect people. We all have bad days. Abuse is an ongoing pattern of behavior and treatment designed to control, manipulate, and subject another. Again, it's about maintaining power and control over that other person or people in order to meet selfish perceived needs and wants at no matter the cost. Abuse operates in a cycle. The pattern of behavior can be tracked over time. This is my other thing I want you guys to go away with. Know this cycle. This will give you eyes to see what's happening behind closed doors almost more than anything else I share today. So this is a big one. And I know on your handouts, the image is really small. If you give Bobby Joe your email address, I will email all these slides to you so that you'll have this for your tool. What's that? Oh, good. Yay. So abuse, it's a pattern of behavior that can be tracked over time. I experienced abuse and trauma as a child. My husband experienced severe physical and every type of abuse growing up in his home. So what do you think we brought in our marriage? Unhealed wounds and patterns of abuse, because it's a learned pattern of behavior, right? We cleaned up well in public. We wore the appropriate, believable masks. But we lived inside. We lived in a prison of shame, of guilt, of hopelessness, fear, and just deep, deep suffering. Neither one of us would have labeled what we were going through as abuse. Not one time would we have said that in our marriage. We reacted out of our brokenness. We knew that we didn't communicate well. We for sure didn't fight well, for sure. But we didn't know really there was any other way. We manipulated, we raged, and we harmed one another. We believed the lies that if we just worked harder, we could fix our issues. If we could fix our communication, figure out better ways to deal with stress and anger. Again, these are all great things, but they do not address the root of the cycle and patterns of abuse. Surprisingly, we didn't hide everything. A lot of people will really keep it behind closed doors. We were pretty desperate for help. And so we were honest. When close friends would come to us and say, hey, is everything okay in your marriage? We would answer honestly. We really did. Our close friends, our pastor, who is so dear to us to this day, these people who genuinely loved us and they loved God would express their concern, but they didn't know what to do with the information. They weren't familiar with the cycle of abuse. I'm telling you, that one graphic, if you can memorize that, it changes everything. They didn't know what that was. They'd agree, all right, things are not good in your marriage, but they couldn't point us in the direction to address the root causes. They'd tell us to pray harder. That's really good. Learn to communicate better. Oh my gosh, did I try? And he did too. Learn better boundaries. These are good tips, right? Grow stronger in your faith. Go to marriage counseling and retreats. We went to every single thing available. Every marriage counselor, every marriage retreat, every conference. We were there. We were absorbing the information, and we were so frustrated that somehow we must be the ones that can't apply this information and somehow get our marriage on track. Nothing changed. Our friends' lack of training and knowledge about domestic abuse and our lack of training and knowledge contributed to our family living in prolonged pain, not because people lacked love and genuine care. They did, but because they and we lacked the wisdom and understanding to help us identify the real problem, which was the learned pattern of abuse, and show us a way out of our captivity. The Bible tells us in Hosea 4:6 that we perish not for a lack of love, not for lack of caring, lack of knowledge. We don't know what we don't know, right? I was shocked when my husband and I separated, really separated, and I was sat in the counseling office with a trained domestic violence counselor. This wasn't someone that had attended something like this. This wasn't someone that did an online class and checked that box off. I mean, that's good. This was someone that this was her passion, and she had researched and trained and been in the field, and she knew all about this. And I sat in her office, and I'm telling her our story, and she's just nodding, and she's kind of interjecting. It's almost like she was in my mind reading my thoughts, or she had a spy cam in my home, and it freaked me out. I'm like, how do you know that when this happened, then that happened, and then this happened, and then that happened? Because abuse operates in a cycle. And she knew the cycle inside and out. She knew every aspect of it, and she could meet me where I was at and call it for what it was. Abuse runs in a predictable cycle and pattern responses. So let's talk through this cycle. First, there's tension building. Something has happened to agitate the abuser. Something's off, and usually the other person will sense there's something wrong, and you start walking on eggshells, and you start figuring out, how can I put out the fires? How can I keep everything calm? How can I just make sure that nothing explodes? But unfortunately, nothing's going to stop it. You might be able to postpone it for a little bit, but it's not going to stop it. An incident or explosion will happen. There's abuse and an exertion of control. Often the victim feels numb. There's a disassociation, withdrawn feelings of emptiness. This moment is when victims are most receptive to help. It's when the incident happens, right in that time frame. And then it moves on to reconciliation, where the abuse is minimized, promises and oaths are made, profuse love is expressed. The victim is often left feeling overwhelmed with guilt and shame. If only I did this, if only I did that, right? There's this glimmer, though, that there might be hope for change, right? And then it continues to the calm. You forgive and forget. We're okay. Everything is okay. We're all okay. But the cycle just continues again. For some, this cycles daily over and over and over again. For others, it cycles every week, every month, every year. There's no exact set pattern, but the cycle is the same. It explains why domestic abuse is so hidden and misunderstood. The calm can really appear like real change, right? Like something shifted. This is exciting, but it's not lasting. Unfortunately, I wish that it was, but it's not. I had no knowledge about this cycle of abuse, nor did those closest to me. And so when our family cycle would hit the calm, it was God is answering prayers. There's change happening. This is so exciting. And then when another incident would occur, it was very confusing, really confusing. And sometimes I was questioned about my honesty. Like, are you telling, really? Did that happen? And it was sometimes viewed just as a simple setback or mistake. So knowing the cycle gives you eyes to see, right? And recognize and not misname it or excuse it. All right, let's go to abuse. Comes in many forms. We know a lot. I'm hoping to share a little bit more with you today, though. Physical or sexual assault, psychological, financial, and spiritual, all of them violate God's design for our relationship with Him and with others. So let's start with the most obvious. Physical abuse. There's some examples up there of pulling hair, punches, slaps, damaging property, abandoning a partner in an unfamiliar place. That's abuse. Using weapons, obviously, to trapping the partner in the home, or keeping her from leaving or calling the police or 911 for help. Can you give me some other examples? This is the easiest one that we're all most familiar. Physical abuse, what can it look like? Yes, intimidation. You might not ever throw a punch, but man, you might use your body and your posturing. You might punch a hole through the wall near someone's head. You might throw a dish that doesn't hit, but almost. That's all physical abuse. Sexual abuse. This is where your partner forces or manipulates you to have sex and perform acts that you're not comfortable with. Maybe holding a partner down, demanding sex when your partner is sick or not feeling well. It's ignoring the other person's feelings about being intimate. Sometimes it's making a partner feel like she owes or is obligated, using shame, guilt, and threats, giving drugs to loosen someone up. I know this is a really private topic, but can you think of any other examples? That's right. It's your wifely duty, and that's a misuse of God's good word. Physical and sexual abuse violate God's design for relationships. Psalm 11:5 says, "The Lord hates violence with a passion." There's nowhere that He's excited about violence. James 1:19-20, man's anger does not promote the righteousness of God. Any touch given that's not coming from a place of love, respect, and dignity, that's apart from God's good plan. Ephesians 5:21-33 talks about marriage is meant to be this beautiful expression of Christ and the church. And what's the relationship of Jesus and His body? One of service, of compassion, of love, where everyone is elevated and lifted up, right? All right, the next is psychological abuse, emotional and verbal. Name-calling, insults, diminishing self-esteem, ignoring feelings, ridiculing beliefs, withholding approval to manipulate, coercive behavior, threats, more intimidation, undermining parenting, employment, and other relationships, isolation from family and friends, and gaslighting. I think that's a more common term now most people are familiar with. It's where you experience something, and the person that did that to you questions, did that really happen? Was it really that bad? I think it might be in your head. And you literally think you're going crazy. That is a crazy-making cycle. What are some other examples of psychological abuse that you can think of? Projection, where they have behaviors and they say that you're doing them. Yes, that's a very big sign. Here's an interesting fact. We would think that physical abuse, the physical harm to the body, would be the hardest to overcome. It's not. Psychological abuse does the most damage and takes the longest journey to heal and recover from. There may not be physical scars, but it just erodes you from the inside out. God designed us to communicate with love, with truth, with grace, gentleness, kindness, and compassion, to uplift and edify, not demoralize and humiliate. Proverbs 18:21, God tells us the power of life and death are in the tongue. He doesn't say it's in the fist, it's in the tongue. It matters what we say. God calls us to address conflict in ways that honor voice and choice for both parties, that brings compromise and resolution. God reminds us that when we're angry, which we will be, anger is not a sin. We're going to be mad. There's a lot in life that will make us mad. But not to use our anger as an excuse to harm and hurt others with our words, right? Let's go on to financial abuse. 98% of women living in domestic violence experience financial abuse. 98%. Some examples are placing a partner's paycheck into your own bank account and denying that person access to it. So there might be money there, but you're not going to have it. Refusing to give their partner money to pay for necessities or shared expenses, food, clothing, transportation, medical care, and medicine. Maxing out credit cards in the partner's name. I can't tell you how many people come to us and their credit is destroyed. Sometimes not by their own doing, right? But they're going to have to pay the price to rebuild that. That's a form of abuse. What are some other examples you can think of about financial abuse? Yes. Absolutely. You got 2 in 1 right there, right? Absolutely. God did not design us to use our money in a way that harms or withholds meeting the needs of ourselves or others, right? God calls us to take care of the needs of our family and the needs of others in the community, to give rather than hoard and be selfish. And he warns us, he's very clear, that money is a root of evil. It's so easy to make money an idol and chase after it and make it your goal and use it so selfishly that God warns us, don't do it. It's not going to be good. All right, let's lastly move to spiritual abuse. This is where religion and scripture are misused for selfish ends, right? Where the abuser may present their actions as approved by God. That will mess you up, right? That's going to mess your relationship up with God when someone uses scripture as a way to abuse you. They use spiritual authority and power to intimidate, require submission, like you shared, without being questioned. They refuse accountability. That is something we see a lot in spiritual abuse. If you're walking with someone and they don't want anybody to know their business, they're just fine, and they don't want to be held accountable to anything, that's a big red flag, because God calls us to walk in transparency with one another and accountability with one another. They use fear, guilt, and shame to gain compliance. Sometimes it's the opposite, where maybe the victim wants to pursue God and church, and they say, no way, nope, you're home, you're not going there. So that doesn't allow them to build the community and seek their relationship. What are some other examples that you might know? Yes? Right? I would say that happens more often than not. When we go into situations that have escalated and exploded, there's been a lot of manipulation of the church leadership, which breaks my heart. And it's why we're here, because we want to equip you. We want you to know and be able to see signs, and we want to help you so that things like that don't ever happen again. So all these examples, excuse me, they violate our Christian faith and God's design. None of them are a part of his plan. Jeremiah 31 and Hebrews 10 tells us the Holy Spirit will give each of us individually knowledge and understanding. This doesn't mean that we don't grow in fellowship and we're meant to be together. But if someone tells you they are the voice of God, and you can't hear on your own, that's not right. That's not true. Ephesians 5, again, talks about marriage. It's based on love and respect and a reflection of Christ's love and care for the church. And Jesus is our example in how we're to treat one another, right? Jesus, who had all authority, all power, had every right to dominate and control. He was the boss of everything, right? What did he do? He washed feet. He served. He elevated every person and encounter that he had. When we read in the Bible, he elevated their place in life. He clothed them in dignity. He saw them. He shared compassion and truth. He did do that. He's our example. Jesus came to set us free from guilt and shame. So anytime that's being used, you know that's not of God. He did not come to condemn us. He came to set us free. In all types of abuse, the perpetrator uses intimidation, manipulation, humiliation, accusations, isolation, but it's mixed in with lavish love and good times and apologies. Do you see why it's so complex? It's not black or white. But then it goes back into manipulation, threats, and fear. And it is such a crazy-making cycle that when you're living in it, you are losing your mind. Absolutely losing your mind, your sanity. And it's an erosion of yourself. So understanding the cycle and the different types of abuse, being able to identify physical, emotional, spiritual warning signs and red flags, that equips us, gives us eyes to see, right? And ears to hear past any polished image we all put together when we leave our homes. It helps us notice what just might be happening behind closed doors. So here's some warning signs and red flags, some common statements to listen for. And we have a brochure in the back. We have lots of material in the back that I encourage you to pick up and take. But one of ours asks the very questions on this slide. And we've found this can be a profound way for women to begin to go, maybe my relationship isn't okay. I feel like I'm always walking on eggshells. There's nothing I can do that is ever good enough. I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm in a relationship with two different people. When you're with her, do you notice that she acts differently when he's not around? Is she a different person? Does she come alive? Does she behave differently than when he's with her? Does he embarrass, humiliate, or shame her with put-downs? Again, this can be really subtle. Ask for God to give you eyes to see and ears to hear. Does he look at her in ways that intimidate her, put his needs above hers or the needs of the children? Does he not value her thoughts and opinions? Does he monitor and control what she's doing and who she's with? Is there constant texting happening all the time? I know you're shaking your head over there. It's real. The texting is insane. Man, cell phones are amazing, but they are so dangerous. This is just a side tip. We talk about this in other trainings. But, you know, if you're on a person's cell phone plan, they can track where you are, obviously. They can read your text messages. They know everybody that's contacting you and who you're calling. One of the first things we do when we start talking to a woman, when she reaches out to us, is we ask about her cell phone. And we will give them something that's completely separate from a family member, from an abuser, from anyone. Okay, that's a side note. There you go. Bonus. Unfairly accuse her of being unfaithful, show jealousy of her friends and time spent away, blame her for his issues. I know we already talked about that. Living in abuse is like living in an endless traumatic cycle. It's personal and it's debilitating. There's a quote here. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Gabor Mater? Anybody familiar? I don't know. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But he speaks a lot on trauma, and I value what he shares. Trauma is what happens inside you as a result of what has happened to you, right? Trauma is not the actual event. It's the impact that it makes on you and in your life. Abuse often leaves a person with a loss of identity, misconceptions of God, debilitating physical, emotional, spiritual issues, creates massive obstacles to breaking the cycle. Trauma impacts our brain functioning. It leaves us in this constant state of fight, flight, Freezer, the new one is fawn, right? You're in that constant state of heightened tension. Crisis and chaos can feel almost more normal than peace does, right? Families living and coming out of domestic abuse are often beat down by depression, fear, anxiety, self-blame, doubt, guilt, and grief. They tend to have a really hard time trusting other people. And you know what? Even more so, a hard time trusting themselves because they've been taught that they're a little crazy, right? Many struggle with the loss of personal identity, and I developed harmful coping strategies. And you know what? Those strategies were needed to survive. So when we come alongside a woman and there's coping strategies that we look at and we're like, well, that's not very healthy. You know what we say instead? Good job. You used that to survive and you got yourself here. And now that you're safe, would you consider trying something different, right? We don't ever want to bring shame in. Whatever someone did to survive, praise God, they're alive. The effects of abuse and trauma are not limited, obviously, to adults. Every year, 10 million children witness some form of domestic violence. That breaks down to 1 in 15 kids. Those who witness their parents' abuse are twice as likely to grow up to become perpetrators of violence or victims, because abuse is a learned pattern of behavior. Children impacted by prolonged abuse and neglect are often labeled as problem kids or perfect kids. Do you get the picture there? Problem kids or perfect kids. Without intervention, the pattern of abuse is passed on through the generations and generations and generations. I've worked with so many precious children, and I love it when they move into our home. I love any opportunity that we have to build relationship with a child damaged by abuse. And this is what I've noticed, and I know I've read this, that is real, but I've actually seen this myself, that some children develop this almost coldness, a detachment, an inability to empathize, and they are just fighting. I mean, they wake up fighting, they go to bed fighting to get their needs and wants met. That's an abuser in the making. That's not a bad child. That's a learned pattern of behavior. Others go completely in the opposite direction, where they withdraw, they grow passive, they are desperate to please and keep everything in order and perfect. They either become invisible or they're frantically moving around to try to meet everybody's needs and make sure everybody's okay. That's the direction I went. That was my story. My husband was more the other story. Common effects on children living in abuse: birth to 5, bedwetting, clinging, anxious, failure to thrive. 6 to 12, they start developing those negative patterns of coping strategies. Fear is usually developing a foothold in their life. 13 years and older, sometimes it can come out as eating disorders, substance abuse, suicidal thoughts. There has been an incredible study, which I think is very well known now. When we first started, well, I would say more than 10 years ago, when we started really investigating what can we do to make a difference, I met with someone that brought up the ACEs study. And again, this has gone mainstream. Oprah talks about it. So people know about it. But this was profound back then. There was a study that at the time was over 20 years in the making that shed light on what happens to a human being who's lived in trauma and abuse. Children who experience ACEs, those are adverse childhood experiences, and abuse and neglect are a huge part of that. They found that they're more likely to experience difficulty in life and relationships. It impacts the brain. It impacts our body, soul, and spirit, our ability to learn, to process information, to respond positively to the environment. Prolonged abuse as a child or neglect or any of the adverse childhood experiences, they result in serious physical, mental, and emotional health issues. So it's not that something's wrong with the child, it's that what they lived through has created this horrible situation in them. Trauma shapes our physical being, our worldview, our identity, and our spirituality. We see and experience the world, relationships through the lens of trauma. It's like just a mask over our eyes and our heart and our minds until it's healed. There are huge obstacles and barriers to breaking the abuse. Remember that financial abuse we talked about? One of the biggest obstacles to break free from the cycle is economic dependence. 98% of women living in domestic abuse experience financial abuse. Homelessness, domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness, right? So what's a woman's choice, especially if she's got kids? Do I go out on the street or do I stay at least with a roof over my head, right? It's a very complex, messy issue. Religious pressure to keep the family together because God hates divorce. You know what else he hates? He hates people covering one another with verbal and physical violence. The Bible is full of stories where God said, flee. Saul and David, anybody know that story, right? Saul was a big-time abuser. He said, David, flee. Don't sit there and be killed. Flee. There's other examples that I would be happy to share with you at another time. God does not call us to just sit and be abused. That's not what his invitation to us is. And what we know, it's actually more damaging for a child, the ACEs study I talked about, to live in abuse than it is for the parents to separate or divorce and get healthy. That's the hope, right? God desires for marriages to be a safe place of healing and growth, but he never exalts the marriage above the health of the individuals. Jesus goes after the one again and again. He's in a one-on-one relationship with us, and he doesn't want us to sit in harm. Sometimes real love means separating, leaving, and firmly standing against sin. It's sin, right? Some obstacles: fear, threats of harm to self, her, or the children. Again, the loads of fear, guilt, and shame. And when you're living in abuse, you're trying so hard just to hold it all together. You honestly do not have the bandwidth, the emotional or physical energy to take action. You're exhausted, like bone weary. You don't have it in you. Listen to the voices of real women. These are some quotes. I believe his threats about what will happen to me if I leave. It could be far more dangerous for me to leave than it is for me to stay. This is a complex issue. It's not black and white. He's told me that what is happening is my fault. I believe him. He's convinced me that what he says about me is true. I'm sure no one else could love me, and I don't want to live my life alone. We are designed, and we need connection and relationship. We don't want to be alone. He just doesn't have any place to let his anger out. He's under a lot of pressure. I'm sure everything will begin to turn itself around for him, and he'll be happy with me again. Once he gets the new job, once we get the new home, once the baby sleeps through the night, and on and on and on and on. He knows my faults and my fears, my mistakes, and my actions. I'm not perfect. Who's he going to tell? What will he say about me to others? He told me that he would win any custody case and would declare me as an unfit mother. You know how many times we experience this with women we're walking with? It's unbelievable. I have no money of my own. He's the only one that has access to that. How will I survive on my own paycheck? Maybe you do work, but it's not enough to get a home, especially in this area. Oh, it's expensive where we live, isn't it? Beautiful, but expensive. I don't want to be homeless and on the streets with my kids. I still love him, and I took a vow for better or worse. I don't want to fail at marriage or give up hope. My family and my church believe divorce is a sin. If I can just hang on there and manage the situation a little better, it's going to get better. I haven't been able to have close friends or contact with my family for years. He told me and wants me to put my family first. Isn't that a good thing? No one knows what's happening, and they wouldn't believe it, I'm sure. Whenever we're with people, he really appears loving to me. People like to be around him. He's a great guy, except when. He says he really doesn't want to hurt me and doesn't want me to leave. He often brings me flowers after an incident and apologizes, I know he's trying so hard to change. On the whole, women who are abused, they want the violence and the abuse to stop. They want peace. They don't always want the relationship to end. And that can be a hard pill for us to swallow. They don't always want the relationship to end. They desire help and healing for themselves, for their children, and often their abuser. Domestic abuse is so complex. It's entangled in these love relationships. And there's times when things are so good and the relationship is so good, but there's times when it's terrifying. It is not black or white. So any of us walking beside a family or someone that has removed herself from abuse, it is not black or white. It lives in the complexity of gray. And we just have to get comfortable with that. Abusers are not all bad and victims all good. Human beings are complex, aren't we? We're a mixed bag of both. We enter this world hardwired with deep designed needs. God's put that in us. We need basic food and shelter and drink. We need to be loved, and we need to love others. We need to be accepted. We need to feel that we belong, that we're valued, that we're wanted, that we're approved of. Am I speaking anybody's language here? Yeah, we all need this. We want to feel significant. We want our lives to matter. We were designed to have these deep needs met and meet the needs of others through relationship. I don't know why God designed it that way, but he did. And so here we are. We're designed to be connected in community, to do life together. For good or for bad, here we are. But because of sin's grip, we're not born. We don't know how to navigate this in a healthy way. So we've got these needs, we've got these desires, but we don't know how to do this in a healthy way. We have to be taught, right? Babies are born into the world, beautiful bundles of screaming joy. You know when they need something, right? They scream, and I'm so glad that they do. I'm so glad that they do. And as we grow through life, we continue to fight and scream in our own way to get our needs met. Babies cry. Think of a toddler. Oh my gosh. I have 4 kids. I love all of them, but toddler was rough. Ooh, toddlers feel their needs and wants so dramatically. And what do? If they don't get what they want, what do toddlers do? Kick and scream. They make everybody know in the grocery store, anywhere that they are, that they have a need and it must be met. Tantruming like crazy. And anyone and anything getting in their way is an obstacle that must be toppled. The energy these little people have is amazing. Anybody seen an adult tantrum? Anyone had an adult tantrum? Yes, we all have. Adolescents and teenagers, God bless them, but they are masters of manipulation, aren't they? Unbelievable what they can get people to think and do. They want to make the world do their bidding, and they work really hard at it. These are all just behaviors to control and get their needs met, right? Sin shattered our ability to function in healthy relationship with one another as God designed. We all have the capacity for tremendous kindness and love and compassion, as well as unthinkable cruelty. We all do. I do. We all do. It's in there. God chose to make us in his image with the power of choice and free will. And we often use this gift that he's given us in ways that causes harm to ourselves and others. This is my youngest son's cry. Free will. Why free will? It drives him crazy. Like, wouldn't the world just be great if there wasn't free will? And I was like, I mean, maybe, but would there really be love? Would there really be a way to connect to someone in genuine truth? Or would it just be we're all just robots, right? Ultimately, we don't want that. Isn't choosing what's right and good sometimes the very hardest thing to do in life? We do what we don't want to do, and we fail to do the good that we want to do. In Romans, in the Bible, Paul shares this angsty struggle, and I just thank God that he did. We just feel trapped in our negative patterns of thinking and living. And what science is now showing us, what God already taught us, but it's showing us that those patterns and ways of thinking, they develop deep grooves in our brains called neural pathways that become part of who we think we are. It's not who we are, but it's who we think we are. And those learned behaviors begin to feel like it defines us, and we are trapped and powerless to break free from them. But God so loved the world that he sent his one and only Son so that we don't have to stay in that place anymore. The good news is that Jesus came to set us free from the power of sin and restore us to right relationship with God and with others. God specializes in bringing good news to the afflicted, setting captives free, healing the brokenhearted. This is his jam. Creating life out of death, building and transforming. He is an expert of making a way where there seems to be no way. And that way is Jesus. Jesus walked among us, noticing the broken and the hurting. Man, I just can't imagine his life, how he was surrounded eventually by throngs of people wanting his attention and needing him. And yet he still saw them through the eyes of love and compassion. And he's empowered us, his church, to do the same. Isaiah 61 and Luke 4 says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted." That's the abused. That includes the abused. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. Why? It goes on to tell us to comfort those who mourn, to give them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a failing spirit. That was his whole purpose on coming. Why? So they will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. What's the result of all of this? Then he's talking about the humans, will rebuild the ancient ruins. They will raise up the former devastations. They will repair the ruined cities, and get this, the desolation of many generations. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about one woman and one family. We're talking about breaking the cycle for generations to come, shifting the trajectory of someone's life in radical ways. That's what's possible with God. And God designed this healing and freedom to happen in the context of relationship with him and with one another. All right, remember that scientific study, ACEs, right? That's what we talked about. It just confirms what God told us all along. Thank God. I love science. All it does is confirm that God is real and what he says is true. This is what the professionals have found, and I thank God for the professionals, that the key to healing from trauma and abuse experienced as a child or as an adult, are you ready for this? Healthy, stable relationships in a safe, supportive community. That's where healing happens. They've proven that relationships and community founded on love, on respect, on empathy, can actually reverse the physical damage that's taken place from trauma and rewire brains. It's just what God said, but now we know a little inside scoop about how he does it, right? Remember those negative ways of thinking and living, those things that feel unchangeable in us and in others, those sin habits that feel impossible to break? God created our brains in such a remarkable way that we can actually build new neural pathways with patterns of behavior that are healthy, that are good, that are loving, that are life-giving, as we practice this day in and day out over an extended period of time. God's word is truth and life, urging us to daily take our thoughts captives. You know those scriptures. Isn't this cool how it all lines up? Renew our minds, throw off the sin that so easily entangles, practice this new way of living and being in community and in relationship with others. Change is possible. Growth is possible. Breaking the cycle is 100% possible for anyone given a chance and surrounded by a loving, supportive community. Isn't that what God called us to do as a church? Period. The end. Mike, that's what it makes me think of. God's so amazing. So what do you do if you see the warning signs and red flags of abuse? How do you safely and effectively respond? You courageously enter in. And this is not the training where we go in depth about what that really looks like to enter in. I would love to have you come to one of our other trainings, or I will meet one-on-one with you to talk about this more in depth. I'm going to give a very surface overview, okay? You choose to enter in and you choose to build relationship, because that's where healing happens, relationship. What do you do when you see the warning signs? You enter in. You know, in Luke 10:25-37, Jesus expresses the most important things. What matters in this whole crazy life that we're living? Love God with everything you've got, and then love others with everything you've got. That's our mission. And I love that he shared in the Bible the story of the Good Samaritan. I know we're all familiar, but will you just afford me this? Let's just walk through it one more time together, because it just doesn't grow old, does it? All right, so a man was stripped and beaten and robbed, right? On the side of the road, complete trauma, left for dead. 2 religious leaders, a priest and a Levite, and a Samaritan, they all saw this man, right? It says that they all, they might not have witnessed it, but they saw him there. They saw that he was in need. 2 saw and walked by. It's not their issue. It wasn't their concern. Maybe it wasn't their priority for that day. There's no shame. I'm not casting guilt. I made some choices yesterday that I was laying in bed last night. And I was like, I don't think I chose the best for that day, right? My child needed something, and I could have given him that time, and I didn't. So this is not from a place of condemnation. We all do this. We're fixed, we've got a mission, a purpose, we have lots to do, and we just don't have eyes to see. It's not our priority. It's very inconvenient when we see someone beaten and left for dead, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. It's very costly and inconvenient. Maybe those 2 had other things on their mind. Maybe the next teaching or service that they had. They were distracted, though, from what matters most. I've been there. I've done it yesterday. The third, the Samaritan, he was moved with pity, which means he must have really seen. He had paused long enough to consider the condition of the man. And he chose to enter into the mess. He didn't know this guy from anybody. He assessed his needs. He tended to his physical wounds. He met his basic needs, right? Then he provided safe shelter and food. He covered the expenses plus more until he could return. He didn't just pick him up and dump him somewhere and then go, good luck, right? That's an easier thing to do. He went beyond seeing the problem, and he became involved in the mess, and it cost him. And he didn't expect anything in return. He didn't know this man from anybody. When we see the warning signs and the red flags of abuse, we have a choice. We can walk away. We can walk by. We can stay focused on our tasks. I am so guilty of that. I'm very task-driven. Or we can choose to embrace the mission of the church, to help families find hope and healing in Jesus, to lovingly cover all that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. We can choose to walk beside them, to lift them up for a moment, to let them breathe, meet basic needs. When we choose to enter in, here is the coolest part. I know we don't expect anything in return because they can't really pay us back, but God does. We participate in the miracle of God freeing the captives. We get to be a part of that, of binding up the wounds of the brokenhearted and transforming them and us more into his image. It's this beautiful mutual growth journey. It's not just them or just us, it's us together. What a privilege and adventure it is to serve God and share his truth and love. I'm telling you, I'm getting older. There is nothing greater. There just isn't. Everything pales in comparison to partnering with the Holy Spirit and daily witnessing God do the absolute impossible. It will blow your mind, and it's a really fun adventure. Okay, so how do we safely and effectively respond? Like the Good Samaritan, man, we just choose to enter in, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be clean. It's okay to not be perfect. God is big enough for our imperfection. But we do not do it alone. Pray, 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 pray. Invite God in. Pray for eyes to see, ears to hear, a heart to respond. Pray for favor. Pray for wisdom. Pray for direction. Pray for discernment. Pray for a good developing relationship. Listen to and believe her story. That's so powerful to just listen and say, I believe you. It's okay. The details of what happened, you don't need to figure that all out. We don't need to go into who's right and who's wrong. Let's just be there in the moment with whoever's hurting. Most often, what she's sharing is just the tip of the iceberg. And whether she knows it or not, she's testing you. Will he or she, will you believe me? Will you judge me? Will you listen to me? Will you put spiritual band-aids on me? Or will you just be with me? Just be with me. She's testing us. Refrain from reacting with disbelief, disgust, or anger, even though those are appropriate reactions, right? It is. When you hear that someone has done something horrible to someone, the appropriate response is disgust, disbelief, and anger. But you know what? Unfortunately, that does that it heaps more guilt and shame on her shoulders, not on the abusers. Because it's a complex love relationship. You just want her to share. Empathize with her situation without judgment or hatred toward her abuser. Jesus doesn't shy away from sin. He rubbed shoulders with the wicked, touched the lepers, restored dignity to the adulteress. He ate with the weary. He didn't watch from afar. He got in the middle of it. He stooped down into our muddy, mucky mess of humanity. And he drew near. It can be so hard to have love in your heart for the unlovable when people do things that we hurt those that we love, and yet that's the high call of the church, is to love the sinner. Share your concern that what her abuser has done is wrong and not deserved. That's true. You didn't deserve that. That was really wrong. I am so sorry that you experienced that. Avoid recommending better communication strategies or anger management, marriage counseling. Avoid approaching the abusive partner to hear their side of the story. I've unfortunately watched some really scary damage done because we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? This isn't the time for that. Like I said, let the professionals work through the who's right, who's wrong, all that stuff. Let the professionals handle that. Just listen. Offering marriage counseling or anger management or communication, it actually might compromise her safety, and it doesn't address the root causes of the abuse or help effectively break the cycle. And again, that is a much deeper training. I'd love to take you on that journey another time. Be aware that sending her home with a prayer and a direction to be more submissive maybe, or suggestion to be a better Christian spouse or role model, that just further perpetuates abuse. And again, we're not getting into the weeds here. Let the professionals get into the weeds. There are amazing Christian counselors, amazing Christian organizations that can get in the weeds of this. That's not your role. Focus on building relationship. What building relationship does is it counters the isolation that abuse is so good at creating. Reach out even if she doesn't respond. There are so many reasons why she might not respond. Why she might respond a whole lot in the beginning and then completely withdraw, and you think, did I do something? Don't take it personal. Most of it's not about you or me. She's fighting her own battles. Honor her choices and timing without ultimatums. Do you get what I'm saying there? Like, I'll walk beside you, but when are you going to leave him? Are you going to go back to him? Don't throw ultimatums at her. That's not our job. Model transparency and vulnerability. Share your honest, imperfect life for the love of God. Be real. It's okay. We are all magnificent, hot messes, no matter how cool we look. We just are, and that's okay. And God loves us in the middle of it all. It's where he does his best work. Share your own story. Don't just do a highlight reel for her. Let her in to some of your yuck. It's okay. She's testing you. Are you safe? Is it okay? Are you perfect? You look perfect. If you tell on yourself, so many walls come falling down. It's amazing. Pray together and share that you're praying for her. Assure her of God's love and presence and your commitment to walk with her, no matter what choices she makes. Meet practical needs. Oh my goodness. Sometimes we want to get really super spiritual and we forget that actually meeting practical, basic needs is super spiritual. It's one of the most spiritual things we can do. Listen to Matthew 25:35. This is Jesus speaking. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. What? We're serving the Lord. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. Naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did to one of the least of these, you did it for me. Meeting basic practical needs is super, super spiritual. You're doing it for the Lord. It's a sacred and holy encounter. Don't diminish it or push it aside as not enough. It's enough. As your relationship deepens, ask questions over time. Again, build a relationship first. You don't have a right to get all up in her business yet. Build a relationship. Think about it. How often do you just open up all your darkest secrets with someone that you've never met before or you don't know very well? It takes time. Build relationship. But then when it's the appropriate time, ask questions. You don't even need to label what you see as abuse. Abuse is a really scary word. It conjures lots of images, and nobody wants to be a perpetrator or a victim of abuse. Don't even label it as that. Something's just not healthy and working in a relationship. Keep it simple. Questions allow you to gain more information and uncover what might be hidden, and it also helps her process what's going on. How's it going? You can ask that question to anybody, right? How's it going? And then listen. What's life like at home? What causes stress in your life? Do you get to do things you like to do? When the two of you argue or have a disagreement, what happens? Do you ever feel frightened? Are you able to speak freely? And again, please don't take this list and go sit with someone over coffee and just go bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. That will I will be destroyed. Do not do that. These are just ideas, right? Just ideas when you have built trust in a relationship. What happens when you express an opinion that is different than his? What happens? What would be safe for you right now? Let her be the expert of her own life. She is. What would be helpful for you today? Sometimes we can come up with really cool plans. Man, I'm very creative and I can come up with ideas and let's do this and let's do that. Totally not even meeting the person's real needs. I, to this day, still have to pull myself back and go, listen to what she wants. It's not my job. It's not my job. And then as you're asking questions, listen attentively. A survivor recently shared this with me, this beautiful woman that I have the privilege to walk beside who inspires me on the daily. I adore her. She sent me something that she wrote. So this is straight from the mouths of a survivor. How can we come alongside someone who is either currently experiencing trauma or abuse or who's coming out of it? That was the question that she was asked to answer. Her response, listen to them. Period. That was her response. This is not the time to try and make sense of what's happened for them. It's a time to listen and let them tell their story when and how they want. The only thing you need to say in return is, I am so sorry this is happening to you, or I'm so sorry that you experienced that, or something along those lines. They don't need to hear how it's going to be okay or that things will get better. They aren't there yet. The pain and confusion they're feeling is too big to see to the other side. They might not even be sure in that moment that there is another side. So just listen. Isn't that beautiful? She's an expert. She lived it. She gets to tell us what she needs. Listening validates her experience and values what she chooses to share. It restores her dignity, her thoughts, her voice, her choice. It communicates that she matters. Her story matters. Her life matters. This is our cute little t-shirt that we are always selling. It doesn't have the Lighthouse logo on it. We don't care. What we want to communicate is that your life matters. You matter. everywhere we go, we want people to know your life matters and your life matters and your story is worth listening to. Don't be afraid to sit uncomfortably in silence with her in her pain. Man, I like filling silence. I'm super socially awkward when it comes to this stuff. I will fill a silence. I'll babble. I get sweaty. I get uncomfortable. And God has just taught me to just to sweat it out. Just sweat it out. Just sit with her. Your physical presence sometimes does so much more than your words can possibly do. And you don't have to have all the answers. This was the most freeing thing to me when I realized, it took me probably maybe 8 years ago I realized this. I don't have to have all the answers, but I can work with someone to find them. I can walk beside and help figure them out. I can talk to other professionals in the field. We don't have to have all the answers. Listening it gives her space to process. And that's what we need to do. We need to process what we've been through, process our perspectives. It gives opportunity for her to identify, what are my real wants and needs? How do I want help? Let her talk that out. It helps her and you identify the obstacles to breaking the cycle. Maybe the obstacle is money. Maybe it's housing, transportation, childcare. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's shame, self-blaming, minimizing, denying. There's obstacles in every situation. Let her uncover what they are. When you listen and share, respond in truth and love, this again restores value. It's what Jesus did. He restores value and dignity to everyone he encounters, and it starts giving her back her sanity. I believe you, right? We're not going to get in the weeds of anything. We're just going to say, I believe you. I'm sorry this is happening to you. Thank you for trusting me enough to share this. You're not alone. That's what we need to hear more than anything else. You are not alone. It's not your fault. Doesn't matter if you didn't have the dinner prepared on time, the house was messy, or for some reason, whatever. It's not your fault, whatever happened. You did not create this person's actions. We're all responsible for our own actions. You are loved and valued. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve that. You're courageous. You are so freaking brave. You get to choose what you do next. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to boss you around. You get to choose what you do next. I don't know what to do or say, but man, I'm sure glad you shared. Let's walk this out together. So we do a whole nother training on assessing safety risks and stuff. So again, you're getting, is it maybe 3 or 4 bullet points? This is a very complex issue. Work with the professionals on safety. Work with Lighthouse. We have resources in the back full of other organizations doing incredible work. We're not alone in this. We've got an army of people. Let them do their work. Don't do it alone. But very basic. I talked about the cell phone issue. Same with computer. If someone has passwords, they can get into every email ever created. See if there's issues with firearms or stalking. Again, I'm hesitant to even share any of this because you don't have to be the safety experts. Call the professionals. Finally, stay connected for the long haul. Here is a reality that we've got to understand. It often takes an average of 7 times for someone to break free from the cycle of abuse. So what do you think happens during those 7 times? They go back. That happens. What happens to her support system, her family, her friends? Right. Are you even serious? What are you doing? I told you what to do. Why didn't you do it? It increases the isolation. They lose their support. They lose their family. Sometimes they lose their church. 7 times is a long time. But you know what you can do? You can be the ones that you just choose to love her anyways. Whether she stays, whether she leaves, whether she returns, whatever she chooses, you can choose to love her. Just be there and love her. Don't be part of the family and friends that disappear. And again, you're not handling all this. You're just being a friend. You can be a friend. Let the professionals handle what we do. Be a friend, a faithful friend. Continue to be there. Partner with domestic abuse organizations and learn from us. I'm telling you, we just unfortunately sometimes think we know more than we do. And I'm guilty of that. We don't know what we don't know. There's no guilt in that. Let the professionals do what they know to do. We have a staff, a beautiful staff, and we have a team of people, and one of them is an advocate. You know what she does every week? She makes sure that every resource that is listed anywhere, I should say not every week, she does this weekly but works through all of them. That's a better say. I don't want to lie. But she works through these ongoing lists to make sure that organizations still exist, that the contact person is still that contact person, that the numbers are right, that the contact information is the same, because Lighthouse can't do everything. And so we pay someone, an advocate, who works with our women, but also makes sure that our database is better than 211, better than any city has, better than anything out there. Not because those aren't good, but it's not enough. The need is so great. And unfortunately, stuff changes. Organizations go under. And so we want to know what are the resources to connect people as fast as possible. And I know if we're doing this, that a lot of organizations are doing this, right? So I love the city of Des Moines printed a community resource list we have on the back. It's not exhaustive. They can't do everything, but man, that's a great place to start. Pick that up. And I know they update it every 2 years, I think. Is that right? Yeah, which is amazing. Call us if you're looking for resources. We mainly know King County and Pierce County. That's our area. Don't try to help her alone. You don't have to. It's not wise. Let us walk beside you. Let us encourage you to self-care and rest and take care of your family as well. Keep learning. Take part. There's so many online discussions now. COVID has given us a gift that we can access just about anything at any time online. I've listed some up there. Off. Mending the Soul by Stephen Tracy is a book, and Christian Caregiving by Kenneth Hawk, great books. There's so many people that have written amazing materials. Keep learning and growing. And then lastly, choose to waste God's lavish love. And what do I mean by that? God did not withhold his love from the broken and hurting to see how that might all turn out, right? He just poured it out. He loved people knowing they might not ever respond. They might not ever find healing. They might choose destruction. But he said, doesn't matter. I'm going to love. And that's what he's called us to. It's never wasted. The longer I'm in the field, I realize it's not ever wasted, even when things do not seem to be turning out well. I mean, we are walking beside people or have walked beside people that we do not know if it's ever going to turn out well. But we are going to still love them. We're going to still listen to them and be of support to them. Trust God with the outcome. So how do you respond on the front lines of the battle to break the cycle of abuse? You courageously and carefully enter into the fray. You tenderly hold the privilege you're given. It's a privilege to see behind closed doors and hearts. You tenderly hold that, and you respond with building relationship and love. And you listen. You absolutely can respond to the crisis of domestic abuse. You can offer real help and hope to families. You can connect families to professionals to step in and help break that cycle. The choice is simply ours. When we see the red flags, which we will, the more knowledge you have, the more you're accountable to. It's just a crazy thing. You're going to see things, and that's okay. But when you see it, what are you going to do? Are we going to walk by? Sometimes I do. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I do. Are you going to brush it off as a marriage issue, communication issue, salvation issue, personal issue? Not your problem. It's not. Or we can grab hold of the knowledge that we have and we can do something about it. You can safely enter in, build relationship, ask questions, listen, respond with truth and love. Begin to roughly assess her safety. Meet practical needs. Bring the woman a meal. Watch her kids. Do an errand for her. Give her a movie pass where she just gets to go somewhere by herself. Think of anything that's, oh yeah, I would enjoy that. Give that to her. Connect her to professionals and then stay connected for the long haul. It is so not easy. I know the answer might sound simple. Build relationship, have friendship, connect to professionals. That all sounds really easy. It's not. I recognize that. It's really complicated. It's inconvenient. It's costly, but it's God's beautiful invitation to participate in the miraculous, to witness him move on behalf of the hurting, to free the captives, to bind up the wounds of the brokenhearted, and then to watch him bring new, abundant, overflowing life out of total death. It's incredible, and you don't want to miss it. So what now? What now? What do you do with the knowledge you've gained today? What is your next step? What is God calling to you? I'm going to give you some ideas, because that's what we do. All right, so I shared that we've got a couple brochures in the back. These are wonderful. One is our newest brochure, which is our Rise Domestic Abuse program that happens right here. It's only once a month, but eventually it will be every Tuesday night. Women and kids can come here. Isn't that great? So pick this up. You can put this brochure that has those questions. Do you feel confused about your relationship, that you walk on eggshells? You know a great place to put this? We have brochure holders that we will give you, and you can put them in the restrooms, the women's restrooms at your church, at your office, your workplace. It's a safe place for women to grab one and just shove it in their pocket. Pastors, keep this in your office. Have it available. Have both of them available. We have those in the back for you to take. Stay connected with us. We have a sign-up sheet back there where you can sign up for our e-newsletter. Normally, it's once a month, but I'm going to let you know. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Did you know that? Today is day 1. So we are really active in our emails. We are very active in what we're sharing and communicating. We have a lot of events coming up. This is not our norm. So if you sign up for our newsletter, it's going to be okay. By next month, it'll be once a month. All right? But stay connected to us. We want to walk beside you. Have conversations with us. I love going to coffee with people. We have amazing places in Des Moines to have coffee and just have a conversation. Pray for us. We really ask that you would cover our work and the women and the children and the families in prayer. It's dark, and we need the Lord to bring light. We need him to do what's impossible. Pray for us and those we work with. All right, this is super practical, and I'm going to say, everybody go and sign up for this today. Ready? Tuesday nights. Part of how we build relationship and community is by having a shared dinner together. Isn't that what Jesus did? He's like, let's break bread. We're going to get to know each other that way. So on Tuesdays, the women and kids come, the staff and volunteers come, and we share a dinner together. Guess who can provide those meals? You can. It's that easy. This is all you do. So you already know the location. You make a meal. Right now, it's only for about 20 people. That's it, 20 people. Make a meal, and then at 5:15, you come to this beautiful place, and you just drop it off, and then you go about your way. That's it. It's that easy. You know what else is even easier? I'm not a cook. My daughter's here. I'm really good at buying food. I'm not a great cook, all right? But you know what? I can order pizza for anybody. So if you're like, you know what? I don't really want to cook for 20, but I want to provide pizza and salad for 20. You can donate money to us, and we will order that pizza for you, and it will be here, and we will thank you for it. That's really easy, right? That's something you can do today. So in the back, do you have the little slips of paper? We have these little slips of paper, and it talks about Rise. And there's all these different boxes you can check. One is to join our prayer team. One is to bring a meal. And you checking that box doesn't mean every Tuesday, Sarah or one of our new employees will be calling you to say, okay, can you bring a meal this Tuesday and this Tuesday and this Tuesday? What if you just brought one once? And then someone else brought one once. And then another person brought one twice. It's going to be enough. You're not signing your life away that every Tuesday you're going to make a meal or provide. Just make a meal or donate $100. So you can do that. Super easy. Utilize our services. Don't be afraid to call us, email us, look at our website. We've got a lot of information on there. We have contacts and organizations all around South King County that you can connect to. It's not just Lighthouse. In our e-newsletter, we have resources. We have churches that have gone through extensive training that are prepared to walk at a deeper level with people. And that's all listed in our e-newsletter and on our website. So stay connected, utilize our services, keep learning. There's some other handouts in the back that are not printed by us. I think Tracy Buxton printed them and she gave them to us, but they have great information about how to walk alongside someone. It might mirror some of the things we've said today. There might be a new idea. Take those from the back and keep learning. Okay, so I'm going to invite Bobby Jo up in a second, and she's going to tell you all about October Domestic Violence Awareness Month and all the ways that you can get involved and partner with us, which are very, very fun. But lastly, I want to say I'm very aware in any room, any place that I visit, that I'm not the only one that experienced abuse in my life. As a child or adult, I'm not the only one. So if something I've shared today has resonated with you and you've thought, yeah, I maybe have some stuff that I've been through, or maybe you've been on a healing journey for a long time, but you're thinking, man, I could use some more support, people that have a shared language, I'd invite you to privately fill this out. And when anybody fills these out, they fold them up and we have a little private box back there that it goes in. So no one's going to know if you're checking, I'll bring a meal, or you're checking, man, I really would like to learn more about the RISE program. I really want to consider maybe coming to a support group or to a workshop. I'd love to connect privately with you about that. So you can fill that out, and we would just be honored to partner with you in any part of your healing journey. So I'm going to invite Bobby Jo up, and she's going to share about all our fun stuff.
Yay. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, man, it's so good to see all of you guys here today. Thank you for joining us. Like Sarah said, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and today's the first. So you are actually participating in our first event for the month. Yes. So you can keep that streak going. And here's how. One of the things that we're doing is we have an online auction, and that actually launches on Friday. And there are so many fun things, you guys. I have been collecting items for months. And there's like hot air balloon rides. There's gift cards to tons of different businesses around here. There's, oh my gosh, there's books. There's, any kind of category you can think of, we probably have something in the auction for it. And so that's online. So if you go, you can take one of these postcards that are in the back, or go to our website and you can see the link for that. That's going to launch on Friday, and it actually closes on October 22nd. And October 22nd is our Celebrate event. And that is where we celebrate the stories of thriving of the families in our RISE program. And that will be shared with you more of what our RISE program looks like and just what's happening here in the community. And it's the return of the live dessert auction. So some of you have not gotten to experience that yet because COVID kind of shut it down. But it's back, and you can come participate in the dessert auction. And the last thing that we have is, and that event is actually here at the Mountain Church at 7 p.m. on October 22nd. And the final thing that we have, a way to get involved and raise funds for our programming for the women and children, and raise awareness, is our 5K, which if you register for, you can get a fun shirt like this. And I actually have them with me. So if you register today, you can get your shirt today. And look, it lists all our fun sponsors. Thank you, Beauty and Wellness, for being our gold sponsor. That's right. Come on. So our 5K, it is so fun because you can come to Des Moines Creek Park Run next Saturday at 9 a.m. So it can be like every Saturday can just be Lighthouse for October, mostly. We don't have anything on the 15th, sorry. But you can come at 9 to the Des Moines Creek Park Run location. Or if you're like, man, I already have plans next week, shoot. You can do a 5K wherever you want to and just wear your shirt and take a picture. And if you tag Lighthouse, it's so fun because we get to share those on our social media. And so we would love for you to do that as a way to, as you're wearing the shirt, in the next year, it's just fun for people to be like, oh yeah, Lighthouse, I know about them. Have you been to their training? Oh, do you know about their program? right? That's cool. Also, they're very comfortable. So, yeah. So I am excited to see all of you at other events this month. Thanks for being here.
Woot woot. Well, I pray and hope that this has been helpful to you, that it has built up your toolkit, that has empowered you to feel like, hey, we can do this together. We can break the cycle of abuse. We can help families find hope and healing. And we want to continue this conversation. Also on the back, we have a list of some of our other trainings. This is like super surface. I know it doesn't feel like it. It feels very deep, doesn't it? But this is sort of our surface level training. We really love to partner with organizations and businesses and really churches because we would love to come alongside, assess what's happening in your ministries, the flow, how safe are things, what are roadblocks that might be there. No shame, no judgment, but let us come in and help you become a safe haven for those families in violence and crisis. That's what our heart is to help you. So we invite you to take that and sign up or ask us about more of our training. And thank you for being here. If there's any questions, we do have 15 minutes. I did it. If there are questions, I would be happy to attempt to answer them, and feel free to ask them. If not, this is where I get really uncomfortable. Yes. I'm already sweating. It's okay. It's a given for me. We do not, and that is something that is so passionate on our heart to do. Do you know someone that could do that for us? Okay, Bobby Joe, will you write that down? And just so that you know, this one that has all these questions on it, we're not all about just promoting Lighthouse. We have the hotlines on the back. This has other organizations. We're too small to do it all. So this is a great one that has other resources. Good question. Yes? Right. Right. So, Matt, you might have some that you can share as well. One, a spiritual Band-Aid, and again, we just kind of misuse scripture a little bit, and usually not because we're trying to do harm, but we're uncomfortable, right? We want someone to feel okay. So one thing is like what the survivor wrote, is that, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Another, this is a rough one. Well, maybe this is your cross to bear. I know that sounds really ugly right now, but I'm telling you, when we're nervous and in the moment, it's crazy what flies out of our mouths. It's true. He's laughing at me. It's real, especially for us socially awkward people. Sorry, now I'm really lost. Help me. Pull me back. Oh, yeah. Oh, God's going to use all this for good, which is so true. That's so true. And I am totally testifying that is what he's done for my life. But if someone had said that to me, I'm sorry, they did multiple times. And it just cut me to the core. How can this be God's good plan? One of the things we work out in support group and in ongoing discussion is some of those tough questions. We talk about those really hard things that we want to put Band-Aids on because it's very complex. So yeah, it's all going to be okay. God's going to use this for good. It might be your cross to bear. Everything's going to be okay. Just trust God and have more faith. Any more that you can think of? Jesus suffered. Yes, he did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pray more. Oh, that just cut me to the core. Yes, he does. And the reason he does is because he's got to carry us through it. Of course he does. Oh, right. Puts all the onus on you. You have to change him. You have to fix him. Somehow you have the power to do that. We can't change anybody else. Good questions. Other thoughts? Yes.
So I'm a networker. I love to get people to the professional, the people that knows that. But there's also this delicate balance of like not just making someone feel like they're pushed off.
Right.
So how do you balance that of like hearing them and listening to them, but then ultimately steering them to the right people?
Right. Well, I think there's a difference between steering to the professionals, which you've got to do, and none of us has the bandwidth to do everything, right? but also saying, man, I'm here, right? Let's stay connected. And what that means is not so overwhelming, because I, like you, my plate is too full. There's not enough time, not enough hours in the day, not enough anything. But what that can look like is when you see them on a Sunday morning. Hey, how you doing? I prayed for you. That's a connection. You can keep it simple. I hope that helps. Anything else? Yes. That's a huge one. So often, just taking little steps are overwhelming, because remember, you're beat down by abuse. You have no bandwidth to do anything. Just saying, hey, I'll call that resource with you. Let's ask questions together. Yeah. Yes? Okay. If someone is on, if you share a plan with someone, they almost have full access to your phone. Oh, I see what you're asking. Sorry. Right. So maybe, I mean, we all have a little bit of a cell phone addiction. So maybe it's not, but if you're with someone and it just seems like her husband or her partner, whoever, is constantly texting when you know this was supposed to be our time together, like maybe he needs something right now, but is it really that urgent? Or if the person doesn't reply to a text message, more keep flooding in to get the person to reply. Were you going to say something? Oh, I was like, oh, say it, Nadine. She's a great resource. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, what is acceptable in different cultures looks different, right? So something that, say, we would claim as abuse here might be socially and culturally acceptable somewhere else. So I think it does look different. Yeah. Good question. I don't have a lot of answers for that, but I think yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Mm. Mm. Mhm. 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 Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, read receipts. And you don't always know what someone's seeing on the other end. So, some family plans, it just automatically does that, where it shows deliver, sent, delivered, read. Some, like my phone, mine's an Android, it doesn't do it. But if I send it, say, to someone with an iPhone, it shows on their side. So we really have, you don't always know what information the other person has. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. Right. Thank you for sharing that. That's good. Any more questions or share something that you know? Thank you for all the shared knowledge. It's helpful. Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Right. Right. Thank you for sharing that. Because a brochure is not honestly going to do anything, but a relationship will, right? And so that's where you all come in. You're building relationship. What's that? Yes. Yeah. 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 Definitely. Well, thank you guys. You've taught me today. I hope that we've learned together. And I'm just so proud of all of you for spending time working through this complex issue. We have lots more to learn, but we did a good head start today, right? We learned a lot. I'm going to close this in prayer, and then feel free to stay after and meet Bobby Joe in the back. God, I thank you that you are close to the brokenhearted. Even when it doesn't feel like it, you are there. I thank you, God, that you are with us in every interaction that we have. I ask that you would bring to mind the things we've talked about today in our interactions with our family, our friends, and people we don't even know. God, I ask that you would give us your eyes, your ears, your heart for those trapped in the cycle of abuse. And then courageously give us your courage. Give us your courage to safely begin to build relationship. Lord, I thank you for every person here, and I just pray that you would use them in their sphere of influence to speak life, hope, healing. Use them as an instrument to begin to break the cycle of abuse in the families that they know. And God, we're desperate for your help. We cannot do this apart from you. So I thank you that you go with us, you go before us, behind us, around us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.